Great. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for your time and for making it to today's AFRAA SkyConnect Dialogue. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today we have a special guest who is in the person of Ambassador Dr. Mohamed Kadah, who is the Assistant Secretary General in charge of programs at the COMESA Secretariat. Ladies and gentlemen, as in previous shows, you have the opportunity to participate in the discussions. Please use the Q&A tab or the chat box to file in your questions, and at the appropriate time, we would handle them. We have 1 hour for today's show, and as usual, our focus and our discussion with the guest will take us through the role of the regional economic communities, and in this case, specifically COMESA, in facilitating air travel, trade, tourism within the regional context and by extension across Africa. We're also going to look at if there are any impediments at all and what facilitating role COMESA is pursuing to ensure that we have easier connectivity, much more cost-effective and efficient air transport connectivity across the continent, and importantly, that we are able to use this to promote trade, tourism, and business, and by extension, grow jobs and opportunities for our teeming youth. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show once again. Now a brief about my guest before we get started. Now, my guest today, as I indicated, is Ambassador Dr. Mohamed Kadah, and he is the Assistant Secretary General for Programs at the COMESA. He is also a part-time instructor at the American University in Cairo School of Business, Executive Education. Prior to all this, he had 25 diverse years in diplomatic career with the Egyptian Foreign Service. His last portfolio was a diplomat. As a diplomat, was the Deputy Assistant Foreign Minister for African organizations for 1 year. But before that, Ambassador Kadah was the ambassador for Egypt in Juba, South Sudan, from 2019 to 2021. He also worked in Berlin, Germany, from 2014 to 2017 as Deputy Chief of Mission, in Sana'a, Yemen, from 2012 to 2014 as Deputy Chief of Mission, in Lisbon, Portugal, from 2008 to 2012 as First Secretary, Consul, and as Deputy Chief of Mission consecutively, and in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, from 2002 to 2007. As a political officer. Intermittently, ladies and gentlemen, he worked in different departments of the Egyptian Foreign Ministry, including the departments of Africa, International, Legal and Treaty Affairs, European Union, Economic Affairs, Disarmament Affairs, and the Protocol Directorate. On his educational background, Ambassador Dr. Kadah holds a PhD in International Relations from the New University of Lisbon, with a thesis on the topic, the International Multilateral System, Imperatives of Change, Potential Scenarios and Suggestions for the Future, and a case study on the UN General Assembly. He also holds 2 master's degrees, an MA in economics from the American University of Cairo and an LLM in International Economic Law from the University of Warwick in England, as well as a BA in Commerce and Business Administration with major in Foreign Trade Management from Helwan University in Cairo. He received extra education and training in different areas, including diplomacy, human rights, Euro-Mediterranean cooperation, etc. And he also received intermittently training in the Egyptian Diplomatic Institute and overseas, including in diplomacy, international relations, leadership, negotiations, media, and public speaking. He is very conversant, speaks and writes 3 UN languages, namely Arabic, English, and French. And he also speaks fluently good Portuguese as well as German. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our guest, Ambassador Dr. Mohamed Kadah, to today's AFRAA SkyConnect 2. Ambassador, you're most welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, dear brother. This is a very eloquent introduction. I thank you very much.
I hope I got the intro right.
You got it very right. Thank you very much.
You.
This is very generous.
Thank you. Well, AFRAA would want to first of all express appreciation to COMESA Secretariat for accepting our invitation to be on today's show and to share with our audience about the air transport development within the COMESA and by extension, the regional economic communities and on the African continent. So we are very grateful that you made time to be with us today and to share your experiences with us. So before we get started, just briefly, if you can tell us, how is air transport connectivity within the COMESA region? If you look at it, how easy, how difficult is it for people to move around by air?
Well, this is a very pertinent question. Allow me first to start by thanking you very much for hosting me, for hosting COMESA in this very important platform. Very grateful for AFRAA, for yourself to be my host, our host today. In terms of air transport and our direct experience with connectivity in Africa, we are all struggling as much as you do.
Yeah.
Our jobs require us to travel a lot, but so often you would be moving between 2 neighboring countries and having to go through a transit somewhere else. In some cases, would be so far from the final destination. And if you fly between 2 distant destinations within the continent, you would very often, most probably, you would have to stop somewhere out of the continent, which is very inconvenient and exhausting in terms of resources, time, and resources. It's a very, of course, very big challenge for all of us. We very much appreciate AFRAA's role as a leading institution in terms of development of the air transport sector in the continent, as well as AFCAC, the African Union. We need to do a lot more together to bring our countries together in terms of air connectivity.
Yeah, so Ambassador, but COMESA seems to have some of the big airlines on the continent. I mean, you have Egypt Air, you have Kenya Airways, you have, I think, Ethiopian, who are some of the big airlines, all part of COMESA. Now, if you look at that to other regions where we don't even have those big airlines, I was thinking that COMESA was better connected. But now, from what you're saying, if we still have to transit elsewhere to get to our destinations, then we have a problem.
Well, allow me to first maybe very briefly introduce COMESA to you and to your audience.
Yes.
COMESA is the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa. It has 21 member states, stretching from north to east to the south of the continent, the these three geographic regions specifically. COMESA has a medium-term strategic plan that directs its activities. Connectivity and infrastructure is one of the main pillars of this medium-term strategic plan. There are specifically 5 pillars: market integration, productive integration, infrastructure and logistics, including connectivity, social and human affairs, and an effective secretariat. Membership in COMESA overlaps with membership in other RECs. As you know, and as most of your audience knows, there are 8 recognized regional economic communities in the continent. COMESA is one of them. Membership in COMESA overlaps with membership in several other RECs, including specifically and more often than others, SADC, the East Africa Community, and IGAD. Well, and allow me now to delve into your question specifically. Yeah, we're very proud in COMESA to have Ethiopian Airlines, to have Egypt Air. I think Ethiopian Airlines specifically draws a very good example for other airlines in the continent to develop, to expand, and to help bring our countries and the different parts of the continent together. In this sense, of course, I would say, yeah, COMESA is relatively privileged to have these strong airlines in the continent, but we still are facing the same problems, the same challenges, more or less, and we still need a lot more. This is what I meant to say. This is what I was trying to make at a point. Yeah, there is improvement. Egypt Air is expanding in the continent. Egypt Air is a leading airline in the continent, especially over the last few years. We've seen new routes as the introduction has detailed before I start talking to you. Of course, this is of essence to the continent and to the region. We have also Kenyan Airlines, which is doing well as well. So we have some examples to learn from. We have some examples to follow. But I think we still need to do a lot more to liberalize the air transport sector in the continent, to improve on connectivity, to facilitate human exchange and, travel within the continent. There can be no significant or substantial integration, economic or social integration, without facilitation of this challenge, without enough and sufficient connectivity.
So, Ambassador, what do you see as a problem here? Is it that we're having problems having access to markets, the airlines who are not getting access to markets, or is it that some states are refusing to give traffic rights, or the airlines themselves don't even have the capacity? They don't have enough aircraft, they don't have enough technical people to be able to operate these routes. What are some of the issues?
Well, I can speak of several challenges, my dear brother. Well, let me start by market fragmentation. And market fragmentation is more a symptom to a deeper problem, which is stringent and very strong restrictions to market access, which leads, of course, to poor connectivity. We also have the challenge of lack of funding to finance the basic infrastructure for air transport, for modernization, for expansion of services. Definitely, as well as you mentioned, shortage of manpower, skilled labor, adequately trained aviation professionals is an issue, of course, as well. This altogether contribute to a high cost of travel in the continent, and of course has an impact on tourism sector, the tourism sector, on the travel sector, as well as trade, investment, industrial development and integration, and regional economic integration in general terms.
Yeah. Ambassador, I thank you for that response and that feedback. Now, it is actually to eliminate the restrictions brought about by limited market access that the African heads of states, in their wisdom, in 2018, launched the single African air transport market, one of the flagship projects of the AU Agenda 2063. Now, within the COMESA region, how are you working together as states of a REC towards implementing the single African air transport market to make it much easier for airlines to operate?
COMESA, as one of the main and active RECs in the continent, plays a very important role along with other RECs, allow me to put it this way, because these are the building blocks of the African economic community, of African economic, social, and political integration. SATM is an AU Agenda 2063 flagship project. It's a very ambitious project. We all are committed to the implementation of this project. We all are working together to bring this to fruition. In COMESA specifically, we partner very closely with the African Union, with NEPAD as the AU and African Development Agency. We partner as well with other RECs, sister RECs, and development partners, all together in the interest of contributing to the implementation of this very important and promising flagship project. Let me give you a specific example. We have a partnership with the European Union. We implement a project for support to aid transport sector development in Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and the Indian Ocean. In terms of RECs, this is a very wide project. It covers several other RECs, and COMESA is the lead implementing institution. So we're implementing this project, including in other RECs, member states and other RECs, namely the East Africa Community, SADC, the Indian Ocean Commission, and IGAD. This project has three principal result areas: facilitation of the operationalization of SATM, which of course is the overarching objective for all of us.
Yes.
Secondly, strengthening the regulatory and institutional capacity of civil aviation institutions in member states. And thirdly, improving air navigation efficiency.
Wow. No, that's good. So there's quite a lot happening within the RECs, and which we need an interface between the RECs and some of the continental implementing bodies on the continent, such as AFRAA and AFCAC. And we look forward going into the future to be working much more closely than we are doing currently with COMESA and the other RECs towards SATM implementation. But let's look at the subject of cost. It has always been, not only is it difficult for us to move around on the continent, but it's also very expensive for a continent which has most of the population poor. We also have a very high cost of air transportation. Now, and this high cost of transportation affects the business community, they affect trade, and they affect tourism. How can we deal with the issue of high cost to make sure that our people are able to travel and trade, and we are able to attract tourism? Because we know tourism can have so many opportunities for our countries.
Yeah, well, cost is a big issue, of course, in the continent. Travel and transport it's commonly known in the continent and globally that travel and logistics in Africa are the most expensive globally. For passengers, for cargo, it applies to all kinds of transport. And there are several reasons to this, as you kindly mentioned. Of course, we've already spoken about some of them, including
Mm.
the fragmentation of the market, the heavy involvement in terms of restriction and so on, which also is related to taxes, uh, relatively high
Mm.
taxes in aviation, introduction of new fees as well from time to time. We've seen some recent examples. I'm sure we all, as interested experts in this field, know about recent developments in the continent. In addition to the very substantial increase in fuel prices recently,
Mm.
these are all drivers of the high cost of air transport services in the continent. What can we do to do this? Of course, I would say the magic word, the key solution to this is SATAM. If we implement SATAM, we can hit more than one bird with just one single little stone. We can save a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of complications, a lot of challenges to our economic integration drive. And in terms of detailed activities under SATAM, and I'm sure you and your audience know perhaps even better about these areas. We need, of course, to liberalize our markets, have the open skies that we all are dreaming of in the continent. We're not in you know in we don't have such a luxury of limiting and restricting air transport access while we don't have other means of transport available. We don't even have alternatives. So
Mm.
this is not a luxury. This is an imperative, an immediate imperative. Of course, SATAM has so many areas of potential contribution to the facilitation of air transport in the continent in terms of institutional and regulatory capacity building and the frameworks, including of helping with building human resources and capacity building
Mm.
in partnership with partners, development partners, and continental financial institutions and other development partners, improvement in air navigation services, improvement in air navigation efficiency, and so on and so forth.
Mm.
It's a magic word to all these challenges if we manage to implement SATAM. Yet, my dear brother, SATAM has been on the table for how many years so far? For 6 years?
Mm. Mm.
Uh, yeah,
Thank-
we're not, yeah, we've managed to make significant progress, but we need to do a lot more.
Ambassador, but what is holding us back from SATAM? Because up until now, we still have only 37 states who have actually signed the solemn commitment out of 54 countries. Now, what is holding us back from
Yeah,
implementing SATAM? A very good initiative.
it's again what we've been talking about from the beginning here. It's the heavy restriction and heavy protection of this market in member states. It doesn't differentiate between bilateral, multilateral, or continental liberalization initiatives. There is always this sense of protection, this drive for protectionism in this sector for several reasons. And let's also try to dig a bit deeper into this because we've been speaking about it without better diagnosing the problem here. It's related to in many cases to national self-esteem. It's related to revenue, national revenue. It's related to economic and employment dimensions and factors. But I'm not sure if we are doing or if we are making the correct decision by not moving faster in terms of implementation of SATAM,
Mm.
because the benefits SATAM promises um, uh, by large very significantly outdo all other expenses if we manage to come together. Of course, there are concerns, legitimate concerns in member states. And there have been some voices about legitimate concerns that have been addressed. Some others, if there are yet concerns about SATM, we should come together very honestly and frankly and address them, because in the end, it's a win-win for all of us. We need to do this together. As you mentioned, it's 37 member states so far, but we still have 18 to go. And in terms of implementation of SATM, in terms of joining the market itself, the single African market itself, not the 37, not all of them. If I recall correctly, it's around 14 or 15.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult. Now, as AFRAA, we were thinking that probably one of the ways of facilitating implementation of SATM might be to look at it from the REX perspective. Can we begin to see, because the REX are already doing certain things in common. So can we say add air transport to whatever it is you are doing in common? So if you relax your restrictions on air transport within, say, COMESA, and then ECOWAS see that and ECOWAS emulates and relaxes among ECOWAS, then we see EAC or SADC also does the same, then it might be easier for us to actually connect the regional economic communities than trying to connect 54 individual African countries. I'm not too sure what your thoughts are on this.
I agree. Well, this was the philosophy behind having regional economic communities in the continent in the first place, for these communities to be drivers of integration within the regions and then contributing to continental integration in the end, as the end objective for all of us. But then it's not a matter of yes or no. It's a matter of where you draw the lines of roles of RECs and continental institutions. AFRAA, AFCAC, the African Union Commission, NIPAD, those are continental institutions with direct relevance, with very important and principal roles in terms of implementation of this very important flagship project. REX, and speaking from the perspective of COMESA, does everything possible to contribute to this objective. But let me also underline something. You know, we don't, because this is a setup we're following, we're working on for the time being. It's not to implement this within RECs and then open the scope and merge them together. We're trying all together to contribute to the implementation of this at the continental level. And allow me to give you some specific examples.
Yes.
Rather than duplicating the efforts of inviting member states to join SATM at the African Union level or from the perspective of CAC or AFRAA, we try to provide the foundation, lay down strong foundations for SATM, increase the attractiveness of the flagship project for member states, engage our member states and mobilize them, motivate them to join, draw their attention to the benefits of SATM. And clearly and more specifically, what we're doing is, and of course, we all have challenges of resources, limitation of resources. So we need to be very careful where we draw the lines of our roles, different roles, so that we can be more efficient. The one clear example of what we're doing is that project that I told you about. We're trying to help with driving the implementation of SATM, inviting member states to join the Yamoussoukro decision, inviting them to abide by the different legal instruments in this regard, providing the necessary legal and institutional foundation for this, providing them with capacity building in the air transport sector in general, as well as helping them technically with the improvement in air navigation services and efficiency.
No, that's great. You know, the concern, however, is that now if we want to wait for each other, we might wait longer. So there's another school of thought that why don't those who have signed just go ahead with implementation? Open up the markets to each other and go ahead and liberalize whatever needs to be liberalized. And then their counterparts would see the value in their opening up and come on.
I agree. Of course, I agree with you. This is not an invention. This is a usual trajectory that different stakeholders would take in terms of regional integration. You don't have to wait to have everyone on board. They call it the variable geometry approach. We don't, and the saying goes, if there is something that you can't take all, you should not leave it all. You move ahead with what you have, and then others will perhaps later on. I'm not trying to downplay the concerns that some member states would have, fears, but probably through time we'll manage to address these concerns and reassure them that this will be in their best interest. At the same time, we should not be taken hostage by some who are not willing to join this important flagship project. I agree with you 100%.
Thanks, Ambassador. Now, another area of concern and which you highlighted is the high taxes. And we know that most of these taxes are collected and remitted to state treasuries and not reinvested in the air transport sector. Now, and like you rightly pointed out, it is important for us to continuously educate our governments to understand the benefits of air transport, what connectivity can bring to them as a way of getting them to actually relax their grip on air transport and get the system to flow freely. Now, would you think having a common rated tax within a REC could actually be effective in reducing air travel costs? So for instance, if instead of some countries charging $100 on per ticket, other people charging $50, others $30, others $20, can we just have an average and applies to all the countries within a REC?
Yeah, well, it's logically possible. It's possible, of course, but it's a very challenging thing to do. I would rather, very honestly tell you that, it's again the same challenge, the same resistance that we will face from member states in terms of touching this very sensitive area of taxation. It's not limited to the air transport sector, to be also honest. It's across the board when it comes to taxes in our countries as a source of revenue for member states. It's more about convening bilateral agreements of avoidance of double taxation, promotion and protection of investment that do not get to the point of having common taxes or coordination of tax policies. But why not? This is not to say we cannot try. We should try this venture with member states, perhaps as well in conjunction or in together in the same venue or the same pathway, together with the implementation of SATM. Why can't we join the two endeavors together? Speaking about common taxes that can be later on at a later stage expanded to the whole continent at time or in time with the implementation of Saturn and opening the African skies. So I would have a grain of salt on this. This is my grain of salt.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are enjoying the discussion so far. I would be coming to you for questions or comments. So if you do have them, please post them on the chat box, and I'll review them shortly. But keep your comments or questions coming, and also continue to actively participate in the discussion. Ambassador sir, let's move slightly to another area.
Please.
Movement facilitation.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure whether within the COMESA region you have a visa-free movement, or there are visa restrictions within among some member states. What is the situation there like?
Let me give you some background first. In COMESA, we have two legal instruments that have to do with freedom of movement, and specifically speaking about freedom of movement of persons, okay, in this regard. We have a protocol that goes back to 1984. We call it Visa Facilitation Protocol, that is being fully implemented with only two member states abstaining from implementation. So 19 member states are implementing the Visa Facilitation Protocol. Then we have a protocol that is similar to the one we have at the continental level, which is a free movement protocol to the Abuja Treaty, which has been facing more or less the same challenges, more or less the same predicament of the continental protocol. Very low uptake from member states. The continental one has 4 member states ratifying. Our protocol has 2 only member states who've ratified. And this is about full freedom of movement. Full freedom of movement is still an issue at the continental level because of security concerns, socioeconomic concerns. You know, all these fears come into play when you speak about freedom of movement. Now, this is in terms of legal foundations or the legal instruments. In terms of real movement, practical movement in COMESA, because this also has to do with member states themselves and what kind of procedures and choices they make from time to time. Now, in COMESA, there has been significant improvement in terms of freedom of movement recently. 2 of the 4 countries in the continent who have zero restriction or zero limitations, or have completely full exemption, let me put it this way, full exemption from the visa requirement, are in COMESA. And I speak, I'm specifically referring to Rwanda and Seychelles. They are both COMESA member states. So many others, several others member states have taken decisions to facilitate movement of persons, and specifically in the area of e-visas, electronic visas. So COMESA's performance in terms of free movement is relatively well. But yet, again, we need to do a lot more. It's not only about movement of persons, let me also add this. It's also about facilitation of trade. It's also about facilitation of small-scale traders, of business people across the continent. So in COMESA, for the time being, we're considering also to have a business visa scheme that is a faster scheme for access and freedom of movement in our region.
So, Ambassador, we really have challenges in Africa with regards to mobility. But, you know, contrast this to many of our countries where non-Africans just move in and out.
Yes.
Often without the need of visas. Even if they need a visa, the process is hassle-free. What is happening? Why are we doing this to ourselves, Ambassador?
Yeah. Well, if we try to take a long pause and think deeply about the root causes of why we have this dilemma or paradox of why we allow third-party nationals very easy access to our countries and not to each other. It again takes us back to the concerns that I mentioned some of previously, especially um, socioeconomic concerns. Big economic powerhouses in the continent are usually very reluctant to freedom of movement because they would expect influxes of workers, people looking for the living, and perhaps also posing challenges to social fabrics in those member states. Another challenge is a security challenge, and it is indeed a very important challenge, a very lively challenge, with issues and challenges and threats like terrorism and organized crime and so on. But these are the exceptions. These are not the rule. You know, Y- the legal principle we all know is a suspect is innocent until she or he is proven guilty. And this is the exception. This is not the rule. Um, yeah, we do have problems, but this should not be generalized to all our people and populations. Uh, what we need practically is to address these concerns,
Mhm.
go straight
Yes,
to them and address them.
yes.
Otherwise, we will not be making so much or sufficient headway.
Oh, thank you so much, Ambassador. Now, let me go to a few of the questions that have started coming in, and then we
Please,
can review those and then continue with our discussions.
please.
So we've got a question from Mr. Shamshu Anjorin. He says, we know SATAM is not fully implemented yet, but is the current level of implementation not enough for the industry to take the lead and start developing services and have us focus on the impediments industry is facing, such as the level of air travel propensity, the cost of doing business, access to finance, economic performance? In other words, we have a critical mass to begin to focus on the implementation whilst we try to address the challenges as we move along? What do you think? Do we have a critical mass? Can we move on?
I'm not sure I really have a clear answer to this. This is something that needs to be analyzed on the basis of market assessment studies and potential and in terms of potential and the the practical possibilities of implementation and driving the wheel from the mass that we already have. But
Yeah.
in principle, because why am I saying so? And this perhaps, of course, um, the the B brother who made this question would, of course, I hope appreciate as well, is you need to have those big airlines and countries there in the critical mass. You need to have some of
Yes.
them at least in order to create the momentum to move
Yes.
ahead.
Mm.
If you so it's a question of what exactly is the amount of critical mass we need. But
Mm.
I would in principle say we don't have to wait. We should not be waiting for long. We should not
Yes.
be waiting endlessly. We should, if this is what we have, and we so far have 14 member states, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah.
Why not?
Yes.
Why
We
not?
go ahead with the 14.
We go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. And then the others, when they are ready, they will join us. If they see they are losing out, they will quickly run to us to join the
Exactly.
rest. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Now, another question from Emmanuel Butera says that on 25th July 2024, the COMESA EAC SADC tripartite free trade area came into force.
Yeah.
How is COMESA ready to drive this huge market in terms of SATAM implementation, leveraging the advantage of hosting the support of air transport sector development project?
Yeah. Well, this indeed is a very important development, and I'm very grateful for the question, bringing this very important dimension to the discussion. It's something that we should address anyway. Yeah, indeed, the tripartite is now in force. In terms of the tripartite, is 29 member states, more than half the African member state. It's a huge economic bloc. It's a big stride forward on the road of regional integration in all kinds of fields, including transport and logistics, including air transport. COMESA is already implementing a project in SADC and the East Africa community. The tripartite is made up of COMESA, SADC, and the East Africa community. We are already implementing a project in these two sisterly RECs, in addition to the Indian Ocean Commission and IGAD. But in terms of the tripartite, it of course offers more potential, more room for cooperation. It expands the potential benefits from regional integration within the tripartite space. It can, of course, be a driver for the implementation of SATAM at the continental level, and it should be taken as such. It should be used, capitalized on to do so. Now, let me also get into some further detail and tell the brother who made the question that in the tripartite we are now moving forward with the implementation of the agreement. It's come into force, indeed, yeah. But then there are some practical steps to take in order to give this force essence on the ground, including tariff concessions, conclusion of the tables of tariff concessions, and moving on with the yet outstanding issues in the area of rules of origin. But again, like it happened at the continental level, we don't have to be waiting for forever. We have a clear and agreed set of rules of origin, and we have tariff concessions, tables of tariff concessions that have been presented and vetted. So we can move forward with these tools. And definitely that would be also again an application of the variable geometry approach. Now, in terms of division of labor within the tripartite, there are three RECs: COMESA, SADC, and the East Africa community. Each of them is in charge of one of the three main pillars of the tripartite. The three main pillars of the tripartite are market integration, which is COMESA's pillar, infrastructure and connectivity, and this is in SADC. SADC is taking care of this pillar specifically. And then productive integration is in the East Africa community. These three pillars coming together under one chairmanship, and the chairmanship for the time being is with SADC. SADC is the overall chair of the tripartite.
Oh, wow. This is very educational, very interesting, Ambassador. Thank you for that. But you know, one of the difficulties that we have noticed is the different regulatory environments in the individual states as against what we want to do together, which then calls for harmonization of some of these regulations and standards. But it's often quite a difficult task. How is COMESA dealing with this challenge?
Yeah, we're doing well. I can tell you we're doing well. And this is perhaps to give you some good news.
Oh,
We're
good.
doing well with member states. COMESA has this, as much as other RECs, has this convening power of member states. We've been implementing a lot of activities in the area of institutional, regulatory frameworks, harmonization of institutional and regulatory frameworks in COMESA member states. And there is a very high uptake of interventions and support in these areas in terms of regulations, consumer protection, regulation of air transport services, air navigation services, technical, this technical sector as well. Rules and regulations are very important. They lay down a strong foundation for market integration, and we're doing a lot of progress in this area. And we do this, again, always with SATM and the Yamoussoukro decision as our main reference. This is the main framework we're moving within.
So Ambassador, at the regional economic community level also, are these aligned, this harmonization of the rules? So for instance, within COMESA, whatever competition rules that you might be having, are they aligned with those of EAC and those of SADC? Hello?
Yes, I'm listening. I'm listening.
Okay. I'm asking if there is a harmonization of these rules that you're trying to do across the regional economic communities, especially in your case that you have members that are common in COMESA, EAC, SADC, and IGAD. Do you harmonize these regional regulations?
What we do specifically is we provide models, agreed models for member states to follow in all kinds of areas of regulatory and institutional infrastructure or foundations. These models are usually you go through a process that ensures full engagement of member states, starting with the technical aspects and then going through the consultation exercises that usually take place and culminating with validation exercises. We get member states to validate them, and then we will have provided, and this is what we've been doing, we provide models for member states in order for them to apply at the national level. And this is happening as we talk. This is happening as we talk. But at the same time, as I was trying to explain to you and your audience, my dear brother, we're implementing these interventions when it comes to regulation and procedures. We're implementing them in 5 RECs. So we provide, including SADC and EAC. So it's not, there is no duplication, there is no contradiction of activities in this area. On the contrary, we are providing the same service, the same support to SADC and EAC member states.
Oh, great. Excellent. So Ambassador, let's go back to our discussion and then we come back to the rest of the questions subsequently. But now let's look at collaboration. What type of collaboration that we need? You already are talking about the sort of collaboration that is ongoing among the RECs. In your case, it's a natural thing to do because of the common membership that cuts across different RECs. Now, but are you also collaborating in any way with the other recs which are outside of the COMESA and its affiliates, such as ECOWAS? Do you have some common areas that you are looking at with ECOWAS, with the UEMOA, and with there's another one.
Yeah, ICAS.
ICAF, yes.
Yeah. Well, we do, of course, work with them with help from AFCAC, with help from AFRA, with help from the African Union. Those are the continental schemes that bring all RACs together. And we as COMESA are usually very active participants in continental coordination and harmonization schemes. Yeah, we do work here from COMESA's secretariat and provide support to a big number of member states. But in the end, this is done in parallel with working closely and joining hands with AFRA, with AFCAC, with the African Union Commission, with NEPAD, with African financial institutions, with development partners, international ones as well, with United Nations agencies. There are those continental schemes that bring us all together under the flagship of SATM specifically.
Yeah, thank you. So, Ambassador, what do you think the role of the AUC should be in assisting the RECs to ensure that we fully implement SATM and make travel, tourism, and trade much more feasible across the continent? What should AU do to help us?
I think the AU has a huge job, a huge task to do, but again, it's about division of labor. The AU is doing the continental, is providing the continental framework. We are the building blocks. We are the drivers of change. And by we, I'm referring to RECs and member states.
Yes. Yes.
I'm referring to AFRA. I'm referring to AFCAC. I'm referring to NEPAD as well. It may not exclude anyone here. So it's about division of labor. The EU provides the continental policy framework, but we also need support in terms of resources for implementation. We've spoken about limitation of resources. We need this, especially in especially in important areas like areas of capacity building, training, continuing the interventions that we're doing in the areas of institutional and regulatory frameworks. This is very important. Technical improvement in navigation services and in navigation efficiency. Those are very important areas that we need, because we are the implementers. The African Union does not implement specific activities. RECs do implement specific activities, but we need more resources to implement these activities. We need more liberalization of the air transport sector development. We need also to address issues related to freedom of movement, including at the continental level. If this continental protocol is not coming to fruition anytime soon, so we cannot, I think, and this is what I think about it very constructively. We cannot continue to flog a dead horse. I'm not saying that it's a dead horse, but I'm just drawing the example. If this is not moving forward, we need to make a pause and reconsider and see why it's not moving forward. What can we do to make sure that it moves forward? Because freedom of movement is essential to air transport sector development in the continent. You cannot speak of a continental market without sufficient freedom of movement.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Now, let me take one more question. Our time is up, but let me take one more question, and then we get your final message, and then we can call it a day. So this question is coming from Samuel Njenga, and he says, what is COMESA's view on regulatory framework to ensure fair competition and prevent monopolistic practices? This involves reviewing measures, acquisitions, and anti-competitive behavior at large. from cash-rich carriers from other regions, such as Europe and the Middle East. In other words, as COMESA got a regulatory framework for regulating measures, acquisitions, and anti-competitive behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. COMESA is a very advanced performer in this area. I'm sure you would have heard about the COMESA Competition Commission, which
Yes.
is very honestly, very objectively, the most advanced competition commission in the continent. We take a lot of pride in COMESA's competition commission, a very active commission ahead um, in terms of performance, in terms of interventions, in terms of contribution to ensuring there is sufficient competition, combating restrictive business practices, of course, combating and checking in the bud monopolistic practices and so on. It's a very active commission. It's seated in Lilongwe, Malawi. You know, there is usually in a continuous manner intervention taken by this competition commission to contribute to ensuring sufficient competition in COMESA member states. But it's not only about REC's competition commissions. It's also about the SATAM itself and the setup of SATAM and the legal instruments. And there is a legal instrument in terms of SATAM that deals with consumer protection and ensure competition, which is one of the controversial instruments that perhaps one of the challenging areas that we need to work more on in order to mitigate concerns with member states. If we manage to do this at the continental level as much as we do in COMESA with the COMESA Competition Commission, I think we'll be on a better footing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ambassador. Now, the final question is from an anonymous attendee, but he wants to know how will SATAM clearly contribute to dealing with low air travel demand? And I can just briefly respond to this. Mr. Questioner, once we have SATAM implemented, airlines will be free to fly across the continent without the restrictions they currently face. In other words, they will be able to fly third, fourth, and fifth freedom routes, and this will increase movement of airlines around the continent. This will now bring and will flood the market with available seats, and by increased competition, we are going to have lower fares, hopefully, and we hope that our states will also respond to this by making taxes on passenger and on fuel lower, so that airlines can operate and passengers can be able to afford lower fares to be able to travel. Now, Ambassador, if I may, before I let you go, your final thoughts. What is your key message that you want to share with this audience from the COMESA perspective?
Well, my key message, and towards the end of this very entertaining and very fruitful exchange with you, dear brother, is, well, would like to salute AFRA for taking initiative such as this initiative and organizing this important platform that contributes through dialogue to awareness and mobilization of efforts in terms of implementation, specifically with regard to the Yamoussoukro decision and the air transport, the SATAM flagship project of the African Union. We need to continue working together. We need AFRA to continue contributing to the implementation of this important flagship project that is in the best interest of all African member states, definitely, no doubt about this, albeit with some concerns and fears here and there. We need to join hands, not only AFRA, but also AFCAC, the African Union Commission, NEPAD, in terms of mobilization of resources, together with African financial institutions, because finance is a big challenge as well. We need to provide creative financial solutions. Private sector is very important. We need to give the private sector more leeway, give him more stake in this very important sector. And this is inconceivable if we don't liberalize the market and open our markets, starting, of course, with decisions taken at the national level in this regard. I would say SATM is in the best interest of all of us. It is already here on the table, and we need just to continue working together and expedite our rhythm of movement in order to implement it. That would be in the best interest of the continent, for sure.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for those final words. From the AFRA side, I want to once again thank you for taking the time to join us here on this show today. We thank you for sharing the knowledge and experiences and the ongoings in COMESA with us. From AFRA, we are keen to work with all the regional economic communities. And you saw before the show started, we were just advertising our annual General Assembly, which will be taking place in November in Cairo. We will invite all the regional economic communities, and we do hope that we would have you participate, because our membership cuts across the continent and are located in your member states. So we would want you to attend these meetings, interact and network with our people, listen to the issues that the air transport industry is confronted, this push to ensure that Africa takes its rightful place. Thank you very much once again. And to our audience, accept my heartfelt appreciation for your active participation and for contributing through questions and comments. Unfortunately, time did not allow us to review all the comments, but there are a number of comments I have seen in the chat box, but we could not review them. Please pardon me. Let them keep coming in subsequent shows, and we'll do our best to go and deal with them as well. Thank you very much, everybody. And Ambassador, thank you too. And I wish you all a very nice afternoon and a good day ahead. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, dear brother. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Esteemed AFRA members, distinguished guests, we are deeply honored to host the 56th AFRA Annual General Assembly in November 2024, graciously supported by the Egyptian Ministry of Civil Aviation. Since its establishment in 1968, AFRA has played a significant role in fostering collaborations and growth within the aviation industry. It is worth mentioning that Egypt Air had the privilege of hosting the very first AFRA Annual General Assembly in 1969. The upcoming 56th Annual General Assembly presents a unique opportunity to experience the enhancement of Egypt and its rich diversity of diverse cultures. Spanning several decades, Egypt Air, Egypt's national carrier, and a proud member of the esteemed Star Alliance. It stands as the seventh oldest airline globally, with its roots tracing back to 1932. Egyptair presently serves over 72 destinations in 35 countries. In addition to its extensive reach throughout the global Star Alliance network. Furthermore, the airline operates domestic flights to 8 key destinations within Egypt. As the first airline in the Middle East and Africa, Egyptair has continuously evolved to its current position as the second largest carrier in the African continent. In 2023 alone, we carried a significant number of passengers, highlighting the growing demands for air travel within and to Africa. Notably, in 2023, we introduced several new direct routes connecting Cairo to destinations such as Manchester, Delhi, Dhaka, New Jersey, and Narita. These route expansions constitute part of our ambitious plan to enhance connections between Africa, Europe, and Asia. Additionally, we have plans underway to introduce 2 more routes in the near future, namely Cairo-Jakarta, Indonesia, and Cairo-Shanghai, China. Dear AFRA members, the African continents stand as one of the most promising markets in the global aviation industry, undertaking joint projects aimed to fostering the African market, elevating services, and providing support. Undoubtedly,